Imagine being British football's most expensive star, a dazzling talent with the country's hopes on your shoulders, only to find yourself sidelined when it matters most. That's Jack Grealish's reality right now. A $100 million man facing a very public and humiliating snub at one of the world's top clubs. What happened to the player who once made Premier League defenders panic with every touch? Why is Manchester City, the team that spent a record sum to bring him in, suddenly acting like they don't need him? And what does this say about the ruthless business of top-tier football, where today's superstar can so easily become tomorrow's problem? Grealish's story isn't just about football. It's about ambition, risk, and the harsh economics of modern sport. His struggles reveal how technology-driven tactical systems and the relentless search for value are turning global football into a high-stakes corporate battleground. And what happens when even the most gifted individuals can't keep up with relentless change. Let's break down exactly how football's transfer market, data analytics, and money have collided in the case of Jack Grealish, and what it means for the future of athletes and clubs around the world. Is Grealish a victim of changing times, his own limitations, or simply one wrong move in a market that never sleeps? To understand this, let's rewind to the summer of 2021. Manchester City were on a high. Already champions of England, they wanted more. The next big trophy was always on their mind. Enter Jack Grealish. Fresh from turning heads at Aston Villa, Grealish wasn't just another transfer target. He was the headline. City's leadership saw him as a game changer, unpredictable, creative, perfect for pushing their attack to the next level. $100 million, a new British record, was splashed out to bring him to the Etihad, a sum that sent a ripple of both excitement and disbelief around Europe. At Villa, Grealish's style was all flair and improvisation. He was the maverick, the man who could make something out of nothing. Give him the ball, let him roam, and he'd carve up defenses. The stats backed it up. In his last season at Villa, he ranked near the top of the league in key passes, progressive carries, and was among the most fouled players in Europe, proof that he was always causing problems. But City is a different animal. Manager Pep Guardiola isn't just hunting for stars. He wants cogs in his footballing machine. Players who fit within a system built on positional discipline, pressing, and intricate ball movement. In other words, everyone has a role, and individuality is valuable only if it gels with the collective philosophy. City's squad is a mosaic of top-level talent, each fighting for minutes amid cutthroat internal competition. For Grealish, that meant adjustment. Suddenly, the pitch wasn't a playground, it was a chessboard. In his debut season at City, Grealish's numbers started to dip. His touches per 90 minutes have dropped by nearly a fifth since 2022-23, a brutal statistic for a player whose game thrives on involvement. His progressive passing distance shrank by 22%. Most tellingly, his goal conversion rate has halved. At Villa, nearly 1 in 7 of his shots found the net. At City, it's now closer to 1 in 15. The decline hasn't gone unnoticed by fans or pundits. Micah Richards, former City defender and now pundit, summed it up with painful honesty. Jack's played within himself. Yet numbers alone don't tell the full story. Guardiola's system demands players sacrifice their personal highlight reels for the collective good. For a free-spirited creator like Grealish, that's a tough pill to swallow. Football analyst Danny Murphy argues, Grealish needs a team where he's the main man again, a team built around his strengths. As months passed, Grealish's role became even more conservative. He started fewer games. His risk-taking, once his signature, was dialed way down. Jamie Carragher put it simply, he needs to take more risks. But City kept winning. And as the team's machinery hummed along, churning out points, trophies, and historic records, Grealish's influence diminished. The dilemma was brewing. How long would City tolerate an underperforming asset, even one with star billing? Football, after all, isn't just sport. It's business. And Grealish's $100 million price tag became less a badge of honor and more a question mark hanging over every missed opportunity. Behind the scenes, pressures started to mount. The numbers reinforced the problem. Manchester City's net spend in the 2024 summer transfer window sits at around £85 million, a figure that incentivizes the sale of high-earning players. Grealish is one of the club's biggest earners, and while his off-field image is still valuable, his on-field contributions just aren't matching up to expectations. Add in the voice of the fans, and things look even bleaker. In a recent City Report poll, a survey among City's global fan base, only 34% believe Grealish will still be a City player after next summer. The faith that once radiated from the stands is fading. For a superstar built on confidence and freedom, that's a crushing environment. Alan Hutton, Grealish's former teammate, noted this shift. He needs to rediscover the joy in his game, something he appears to have lost at the Etihad. If the stats, sentiment, and financial logic all point one way, Grealish's transfer saga was only waiting for a spark. It came in the harshest manner, a humiliating snub in the FA Cup final, one of the biggest games of the year. Grealish didn't just start on the bench, he barely featured at all. For many observers, this was no tactical tweak, it was a message. Wayne Rooney, never one to sugarcoat, offered a stinging assessment. If I was Jack Grealish, I'd be really concerned about my future at the football club. In the relentless ecosystem of elite football, such a public demotion rarely happens by accident. Experts speculated openly. Alan Shearer, Premier League legend, stated bluntly, "Grealish's time is up at Man City. He has to leave for the sake of his career." Meanwhile, Grealish's agent wasn't waiting for City to make the first move. Reports emerged of preliminary contacts with at least 3 clubs. Bookmakers quickly installed Newcastle United as favorites to land him at 3-1 odds. The market, as always, moves fast. The CIES Football Observatory now values him at 40-50 million, a far cry from the headline-grabbing sum City paid just 3 years ago. So, is this the end of the Grealish experiment at City, or is there still a twist in the tale? The business case for offloading Grealish is clear. Off the pitch, social media hints paint a more complex picture. Grealish is still engaging with City content, suggesting he's not actively pushing for the exit. And yet the financial and tactical pressures are mounting by the day. A move abroad, perhaps to Serie A or La Liga, could offer a fresh start. Even the lucrative markets of MLS or Saudi Pro League, while unlikely, loom as fallback options. But for a player of Grealish's caliber, is it enough to just move somewhere else? Or would staying at City, fighting to adapt and evolve, be his ultimate test? Pep Guardiola, as ever, is playing his cards close to his chest. When pressed, he simply said, "What is going to happen will happen, but he has to come back to start to play minutes again." It's hardly a ringing endorsement. The message is clear. Adapt or be left behind. The stakes have never been higher, not just for Grealish, but for how elite football handles its most high-profile and expensive signings. Is there room for individuality in a system-obsessed world? Or is Jack Grealish simply the latest victim in the cold equation of talent versus tactics, value versus vision? With the summer transfer window fast approaching, Grealish stands at a crossroads. The next few months will define not just his career, but perhaps set a precedent for clubs across Europe. What do you do when your $100 million man becomes your most awkward fit? The answer isn't just about football. It's about strategy, economics, technology, and the human cost of playing at the very highest level. Can Grealish bounce back, adapt, and reclaim his place? Or is his City story over before it ever truly began? As transfer rumors swirl and pressure builds both inside and outside the club, one thing is certain. The final decision will send shockwaves across the footballing world. But which direction will it take? And who, ultimately, will pay the price? But what comes next for Jack Grealish in Manchester City? Is Grealish on the verge of writing a dramatic comeback story in sky blue? Or is he destined to become a cautionary tale in the era of the $100 million transfer? The football world is holding its breath as the next chapter begins to unfold. Let's look ahead at where the chess pieces are moving. There isn't just one outcome for Grealish. There are several, each with its own risks, opportunities, and ripple effects across elite football. First, the scenario dominating headlines. Grealish leaves Manchester City. The clamor of pundits and former pros is only getting louder. Alan Shearer's advice was as blunt as it gets. Grealish's time is up at Man City. He has to leave for the sake of his career. Bookmakers echo this, with Newcastle United currently leading the odds as his most likely destination. Imagine Grealish at St. James Park. Once again, the main man, handed the keys to an ambitious project hungry to break into the elite. Newcastle's emerging squad could revolve around his creativity, and the less rigid tactical framework might allow him the same expressive freedom he enjoyed at Aston Villa. Football analyst Danny Murphy puts it plainly. Grealish needs a team where he's the main man again, a team built around his strengths. But there's risk too. Newcastle, for all their promise, are not yet serial trophy winners. The scrutiny of being their marquee signing would be immense, and the pressure to justify a big money wage in a team still building its identity could be just as intense as Manchester City, if not more so. Alternatively, there's the continental adventure, Serie A or La Liga. Italy or Spain might offer Grealish a fresh start, away from the relentless Premier League spotlight and expectations of the English media. Serie A, with its tactical sophistication and slower tempo, could let Grealish use his technical ability and game intelligence. La Liga, on the other hand, favors creative dribblers, a role tailor-made for Grealish at his best. But again, there are no guarantees. Many British stars have struggled abroad, wrestling with language barriers, different football cultures, and high expectations. Would Grealish be willing to leave his comfort zone to reinvent himself? A third route, and perhaps the most intriguing, is that Grealish chooses to stay and fight for his place at Manchester City. After all, this is a club where redemption stories have happened before. City's tactical system is unforgiving, but it is also alive to evolution. Grealish's social media engagement with City content suggests he hasn't emotionally checked out yet. Maybe he's still hungry to prove himself to Pep and the fans. Guardiola himself, though not effusive in his support, hasn't slammed the door shut. What is going to happen will happen, but he has to come back to start to play minutes again. It's a lifeline, but also a challenge. To win back his role, Grealish would need a radical shift, greater tactical discipline, improved consistency, and above all, risk-taking. As Jamie Carragher put it, he needs to take more risks. Yet history under Guardiola is littered with expensive signings who never truly found their place. Think of the likes of Leroy Sané or João Cancelo, brilliant but ultimately sacrificed for the system. Is Grealish simply the latest in that line? There's a wildcard possibility too, a lucrative move outside Europe's elite, to MLS or the Saudi Pro League. The financial incentives are massive, but for a player who at 28 should be entering his peak, such a move would be widely seen as career regression. For now, this scenario seems remote, but in football, things can change in a heartbeat. But let's not forget the bigger picture. Whatever Grealish decides, his saga will echo beyond his individual story. The enormous cost of his transfer, his fluctuating value, estimated now at $40–50 million, half what City paid, and the cold realities of squad management at the very highest level, raise fundamental questions about how megastar moves are judged. If Grealish leaves, it could spark a rethink among clubs over how to identify, integrate, and support blockbuster signings, especially those who thrive on freedom and improvisation. If he stays and succeeds, the template for adaptation in a rigid system will gain a new case study. Either way, the next chapter will be studied by sporting directors and agents across the continent. But what does all this mean for you, the viewer? Is this just another transfer soap opera, or is there something deeper to learn from Grealish's crossroads? First, consider the human side beneath the headlines. Grealish's trajectory is a lesson in the unpredictable nature of career moves, whether you're a footballer, a professional, or anyone facing a big choice. The skills that made him a star at Aston Villa, his flair, bravado, and ability to carry a team, were almost too big for City's carefully choreographed machine. The very traits that caught City's eye were the ones most at risk in their system. It's a reminder. What gets you to the top isn't always what keeps you there. Success in a new environment often means sacrificing some old strengths to gain new ones. Adaptability isn't just a buzzword, it's essential. Whether you're changing jobs, moving to a new city, or facing a new challenge in life, the Grealish dilemma says, stay true to your core strengths, but be ready to evolve. The story also illustrates the pressure of expectations. Imagine being valued at £100 million, every touch scrutinized, every missed chance amplified. Grealish has become a lightning rod for debates about money in football, the value of English talent, and the perils of the modern transfer market. In any high-pressure job, managing external expectations, while staying focused on your internal growth, can be the difference between faltering and thriving. For football fans, Grealish's saga is a fascinating lens into the tough choices facing players and managers at the top. Want to understand why some big-money signings flop? Why does a player who lights up mid-table teams sometimes struggle in super clubs? It comes down to more than just stats. It's about fit, trust, mental adaptation, and sometimes plain old luck. Next time you debate a transfer with friends, remember Grealish's numbers: touches down 18%, progressive passing distance down 22%, and only 34% of City fans believing he'll stay beyond 2025. And if you're involved in business, startups, or creative work, Grealish's predicament offers another lesson. Betting big on talent is always a gamble. Organizations must not only buy quality, but create the environment where that quality can shine. If you're a leader or a manager, ask yourself, are you letting your stars play to their strengths, or are you boxing them in? So, what will happen? Will Jack Grealish stay at Manchester City and reinvent himself as the ultimate team player, less the maverick, more the tactical cog? Or will he become the next headline exit, proof that even $100 million buys no guarantee of a perfect fit? Here's what the evidence suggests. The odds, the expert opinions, and the club's financial strategy all point toward a summer exit. His agent is already working the phones, and Manchester City's desire to trim the wage bill is no secret. Newcastle is circling, and the Premier League's transfer merry-go-round is about to kick into high gear. But football isn't just a numbers game. It thrives on the unpredictable. Grealish's connection to City, his lingering hunger to prove himself, and that stubborn streak that made him a star in the first place, these could yet fuel a remarkable turnaround. If he stays and finds a way to adapt, it'll be one of the great comeback stories of the modern Premier League. The final answer? Grealish's next move will define not just his legacy, but set the template for every megastar eyeing up a blockbuster switch. If he leaves and rediscovers his best self, he'll remind the world why clubs risk it all on flair. If he stays and adapts, he'll become the blueprint for survival at the very top. And if he falters, he'll join the long list of talents sacrificed on the altar of tactics and business. And now, as promised, here's a secret fact most fans don't know. When Grealish first arrived at Manchester City, club insiders report that Guardiola gave him a one-on-one tactical boot camp lasting 8 hours over 2 weeks, trying to remold his instincts from soloist to symphonist. Even after all that, the transition was never guaranteed. It's a glimpse into just how radically players must reinvent themselves at elite clubs, and how fine the margins are between hero and castaway. So, what do you think? Should Grealish dig in and fight for his place in Manchester City's machine? Or is it time for him to reclaim the spotlight elsewhere and play with freedom again? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and tell us where you think Jack Grealish's story should go next. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss the biggest stories behind football's headlines. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.